Hello everyone, this is Perfume Coast, so welcome to my channel. I continue talking about perfume profiles, and today I've decided to dedicate this video, or rather podcast, to the tea profile. So without further ado, let's jump into the ocean of perfumes. So the first perfume I'd like to talk about is called Wulong Cha by the brand Nishane, and it seems to be quite rather popular one up to date. But first, let's take a look at the notes that Organica is listing. So on the top we've got bergamot, orange, mandarin orange, Litse kubeba, which looks like a plant. In the middle we've got oolong tea and nutmeg, and finally in the base there's fig and musk. Now this one to me from the very start comes across as the one primarily citrus forward. However, immediately I also detect green bitterish accord that strongly hints at tea-like territory. So it's this invigorating, clean green tea with a good deal of citrus, and this tea is on a sweeter side, and I'd say it heads to this imagery of bubble tea that of course has been popular in recent years in some countries. All because there's this fizziness that's quite loud in here. I guess sweetness in here is achieved by the presence of fig fruit, although as said before it's in no way loud or anything. And as the scent progresses, the main theme seems to be this fruity citrus and green direction, so to speak. And greenness in here is a combination of herbal and zesty motifs, I would say. So as a permanent characteristic, there is this citrus herbaceousness with a touch of fruity accord added. As with many other Nishane releases, this one is pretty long-lasting. So in summer season, it guarantees uninterrupted delivery of beautiful, invigorating citrus tea with green herbal faucets that never really fade away. And in the deep dry down on my skin, this fragrance gives off this watered down citrus drink with a residual tea accord. Next up, along the similar lines, is a release by Armani Prevail line, and the fragrance is called Yulong. So, and as always, let's take a quick look at the notes that Organica is giving. So on the top we've got mandarin orange, petitgrain and cardamom. In the middle there are two types of teas, green tea and black tea. There's orange blossom and jasmine. And finally in the base there's vetiver, ambrette and iris. Now this one is similar but not in any way identical to the Nishane's release. The main difference from the previous one is that this one is a lot more tea-scented as compared to the first one. And no wonder, tea here is both on the top and in the middle of the fragrance. This tea is quite concentrated, almost coming across as well-brewed black tea, but again with a good addition of some citrus, probably bergamot, as this citrus compared to the first one again is a lot quieter, giving way to this tea-forward accord. Yes, definitely, I think that would be a bergamot with a more contained character and this extra dose of herbaceousness. So this fragrance is your slightly sweetened black tea with a bergamot added to it and giving you a distinct impression of Earl Grey tea and all the tea attributes that normally accompany a tea ceremony. You can definitely picture beautiful crockery, all the good stuff, saucers, cups, creamers, and of course beautiful mini cupcakes and scones anticipated along the way. So with this one being this strong tea-forward perfume, you're definitely transformed into the time and space of having your afternoon tea with all the relative attributes as said before. And if Nishane's release is more of an ice citrus tea, this one is definitely your classic Earl Grey brew, freshly made. Although, of course, both of them are great for a summer wear just because of the presence of a good deal of citrus accords in there. And because of tea accords present in both of the releases, both the fragrances are good to be worn on a summer evening occasion, for example. Next up, this time is, largely an underrated release. It's by the brand Atelier Cologne and it's called Oolang Infini. And as always, let's take a quick look at the notes that Organica is listing. So on the top there's bergamot and Tunisian neroli, in the middle there's tea, jasmine and leather, And finally, in the base says Gaiac wood, Haitian vetiver, and tobacco blossom. So this one starts off as a lot more subtle tea option. Initial impression is that some aquatic accord is added here, and then, oddly enough, this initial aquatic impression gets transformed into a suede one. So in the end, it's a light, slightly citrus tea with some salty and suede touches. The suede here is not overpowering at all, but you can definitely detect this beautiful, subtle suede texture that is so delicate that it reminds more of a velvet material rather than strong suede or leather. So if you're someone who is quite apprehensive of leather accords, you may want to test this one for sure. On the other hand, this fragrance is quite unique in a sense that it contains quite a few contradictory characters such as suede, florals and tea. Although, if you think of it, it all just makes sense. As the tea is this velvety bitterish texture, so is leather and suede, and some florals too. So I would say this velvety quality is front and center in here, and somehow it's delivered by a few different notes, giving this velvet quite various facets. In fact, to me, this is not so much all about tea fragrance, but rather about this suede, slightly aquatic citrus cologne. The longevity of this scent is exactly what its concentration suggests. It's eau de cologne, but the primary advantage here is this scent uniqueness, as again it's rather about dedication to an accord, in this case a velvet one, rather than a dedication to a particular note or situational association. Also, it's quite underrated, I thought, judging by underwhelming volumes of reviews heard so far, at least by me. Another uniqueness is that this suede fragrance is also an appropriate option for a summer season, just due to the abundance of citrus and aquatic accords. So next up is yet another interesting release by the brand Miller Harris, and it's called Tonique. And as always, let's take a quick look at the notes that Fragrantica is listing. So on the top, what we've got here is bergamot, lemon and petitgrain. In the middle there's tea, nutmeg and peach blossom. And finally, in the base there's mate, birch and musk. Now, this tea-forward scent to me is the most masculine leaning of all mentioned so far. The opening is this quite bitter tea accord with just a touch of citrus added to it. It almost feels like this tea has been in a teapot for quite a while, and along with good brew, it's now this tart, mature quality, giving association with colder tea perhaps. Also, because of how this fragrance comes across, this scent has a bit of vintagey direction and I'd say a bit of ambery quality. I can also detect some herbal accords and a bit of smokiness, probably coming from a birch which is in the base here. Overall, quite a classy, again, slightly masculine tea-forward fragrance that can be worn, however, both during colder and warmer seasons. And finally, the last fragrance for today's video is the release of Elizabeth Arden house, belonging to the green tea line, and it's dedicated to the lavender. And as always, let's take a look at the Fragrantica's site. So on the top we've got Amalfi lemon, chamomile, mint and mandarin orange. In the middle there's lavender, tea and magnolia. And finally in the base there's musk, ambrette and birch as well. Now this scent is simply great. And this being said, I mean also the value for money, meaning that this scent is quite affordable. The start is so sparkly and bright, it almost feels like a bubbly cocktail. But this cocktail is not sweet, it's quite herbal and citrusy. So from the very start, I can really detect lots of citrus and lavender, which are of course classic combo for a refreshing cologne composition. But here, this accord is amplified by a beautiful note of chamomile that adds this a bit bitterish complexity to this otherwise simple classic cologne. All this is happening, of course, on the strong DNA of Elizabeth Arden green tea line. But again, whilst tea base is certainly present in this flanker, to me it's more of a high quality, refreshing and zingy EDC with a bit of twist. Equally, there's mint note on the top, but to my nose it doesn't do much on itself, but rather contributes to the brightness of the citrusy lavendery eau de cologne. So this scent is extremely fresh, clean, citrusy, herbal, and it will surely tick all the boxes as your summer fresher option. But as said before, guys, this has been the last fragrance for today's video. If you've liked this video, please give it a like, please consider subscribing, please share your comments if any. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.